Good evening. Welcome to Lompoc City Council meeting. This is Tuesday, April 18th. It is 6:35 p.m. I'd like to remind everyone to silence your cell phones. Let's see, we are reconvening from a closed session that we had at 5:15. City Attorney, any actions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council met in closed session to discuss the three items on the agenda. The first item was an existing litigation item. Direction was given to staff, but no reportable action was taken on that item. The second item was a conference with labor negotiators. Direction was also given to staff on that item, but no reportable action was taken. The third item was conference with real property negotiators. Direction was given to staff on the properties 1404 and 1408 West College Avenue, but no reportable action was taken. On 518 North T Street, City Council authorized the acceptance of an offer to purchase that property so the city's selling that property at a price of $90,000 to individual named Carlos Alvarado. The offer is contingent upon that buyer refinancing certain other properties. That concludes the closed session report.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, invocation, Mr. John Doyle. Will you please rise, remove your hats.
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, as we convene this city council meeting, we ask a blessing upon those that are participating. We invoke thy blessings to be upon the city council, the mayor, city staff, all those that labor for the good citizens of this city. We ask a blessing upon citizens of our great city, that they would be blessed and have stability, that they would be blessed with things that they stand in need of. Bless those, Father, at this time that might be facing mental, emotional, or elements or adversity otherwise, that they would find peace and be able to return to full productivity in their station in life. We ask a blessing upon the first responders of this city. Bless them with safety and security. Bless their families. We pray blessings to be upon them. Those that serve in the armed forces, that are participants in our city, that they would be blessed also. We ask a blessing of wisdom and physical and emotional strength to be again upon the leaders of our city and state and of our country. We are grateful to meet here in such a good, favorable circumstances this night, and ask these things, Father, in your name, amen.
Amen. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Have a seat. Okay, let's see. On April 13th, I presented a proclamation honoring National Healthcare Volunteer Week over at Lompoc Valley Medical Center. It was amazing. They told me the number of hours that the volunteers put in. It was equivalent to basically their entire staff on a yearly basis, and these were the volunteers. Okay, I'm going to now do a presentation honoring National Public Safety Communications Week. And Chief Walsh, would you step forward? You've been promoted.
No.
Okay, Captain. Okay, this is a proclamation, National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated April 9th through the 15th, 2017 as National Public Safety Communicators Week. And whereas when the emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the communication center. And whereas public safety communicators are the single vital link to our public officers, police officers, and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them with information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety communicators have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suspension of fires, and treatment of patients. And now therefore I, Bob Lingle, Mayor, City of Lompoc, California, do hereby call upon the citizens of Lompoc to observe National Public Safety Communicators Week, to recognize and appreciate the vital role of the city public safety dispatchers play in the keeping of the city safe, and do hereby proclaim April 9th through the 15th, 2017 as National Public Safety Communicators Week. Do we have any public? Do we have any here?
Open, but most of them
Are working.
are working,
Okay.
and the gentlemen who are on duty right now are watching it via stream. So,
Okay, well, we want to thank them all for this, for what they do, and thank you very much.
thank you, Mary. And if I may, I just want to say a few words. You know, it's traditional usually when we acknowledge our dispatchers to play a audio tape of one of the calls that they've handled. And we've done that in years past. But this year I wanted to do something a little bit differently and just tell you a little bit about how fortunate we are here in Lompoc to have the dispatchers that we have. The Lompoc dispatchers are truly deserving of acknowledgement for their outstanding service to the men and women of the Lompoc public safety family and the citizens of Lompoc. During the past year, Lompoc dispatchers have handled over 75,000 calls for service, of which nearly 15,000 were 911 calls for police and fire emergencies. Dispatchers are all too often unsung heroes. They go above and beyond to gather information and to provide police and fire personnel the critical and most pertinent information to respond to calls for help. They are the first to know and oftentimes must endure the wait to find out the outcome and final disposition of a critical incident. In addition to being our lifeline, they perform a host of duties that many are not aware of. Here in Lompoc, dispatchers are tasked with entering information regarding emergency protective orders, stolen property, vehicles, and several other time-sensitive entries into several law enforcement databases. They also support jail operations and perform matron duties when female suspects are taken into custody. Dispatchers are extremely adept at multitasking, and anyone who has ever witnessed what they do will come to the realization that it takes a very special and gifted person to perform their duties. We are truly fortunate to have such an outstanding group of dispatchers. Thank you.
Okay, now, as you all, or many of you know, you should all know that the City of Lompoc is part of Northern California Power Agencies, and tonight we are honored to have the General Manager of Northern California Power, Mr. Randy Howard, to give us a brief presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Lingle and council members. This is going to be a little challenging because Mayor Lingle is also the chairman of my commission at Northern California Power Agency, and I thank you for the opportunity to come here and share, provide kind of an update on the agency itself, as well as some of the key strategic issues that the city needs to be aware of as an owner of its utility here within the city, but you're also an owner of NCPA, so you're one of the numerous communities that jointly came together and own NCPA. So this is kind of an update on one of your assets to the city. And so I'm going to try to run through just a few quick things. And NCPA was established in 1968. It's a collaboration of communities that have come together to own and operate power generation and transmission assets that you wouldn't be able to do on your own because just your size. And so coming together, we were able to bring some efficiencies and scale. And so I'm just going to summarize a few of the activities going on, but we have a very experienced management team. I bring a number of years. I guess we can say we're all older at NCPA, but we have a very experienced team that have operated utilities and currently can provide a lot of support back to cities like Lompoc on a number of technical issues as well as operational issues. Some of the things that we're doing at NCPA currently is we have a lot of fixed costs. A lot of our facilities are quite expensive. We have a power management center that works at dispatching every 5 minutes, trying to ensure that they understand what the loads are going to be in the various communities like Lompoc every 5 minutes and making adjustments for those. And so there's a lot of fixed costs to those and IT equipment. So this year we really focused on bringing on some new members because we have additional assets that we can share. We have more ability than we have members currently. So City of Shasta Lake hopefully will be a new member. We're also providing power management services to Merced Irrigation District through contract, as well as Placer County Water Agency. So what we're trying to do is ensure that we're using the assets and reducing your costs. So as these new participants come on, your costs will reduce here within the community of Lompoc. Also, we signed a joint services agreement with Southern California Public Power Agency, and they're a very similar agency. We have about 14 members. They have about 14 members, but they're in Southern California. We're more in Northern California. They include Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. They do several things differently than we do. They offer different services. So through this joint agreement, the City of Lompoc will now be able to access some of their programs as well. They'll be able to access ours. Some of the key activities they have going on that are different and unique, they have a lot of energy efficiency programs and procurement, joint procurement. LADWP buys about 50,000 refrigerators a year for its low-income program. And so if communities want to join into that type of program, they'll be able to get the benefits of this very large aggregated purchase. Some of the things that we do is we have this power pool at NCPA, which Lompoc is part of, and we combine all of the resource needs of many communities. And the California Independent System Operator, the big transmission operator, looks at the pool as one customer. So they don't look at you individually. And by doing that, we're able to balance the loads between the members more efficiently through NCPA. And so this last year, we were able to save $24.5 million for the members versus them doing it on their own, and that's distributed between all of the members. We do other procurements on behalf of Lompoc. We can procure both additional transmission, greenhouse gas compliance instruments, renewable energy credit, and many of these are needed for various compliance activities as well. We hedge natural gas. Some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about strategically that you as a city should be aware of. As of February 17th, the deadline at the state for new legislative bills, there were 1,600 assembly bills, 800 Senate bills. Currently, on behalf of the city of Lompoc, we're tracking 138 bills that could impact your electric utility. So this is just this year, 138 bills that are about issues that would impact your utility. And then there are several spot and placeholder bills currently out there that could be put in place. Some of the big issues, regionalization. There's objectives out there to regionalize the large transmission throughout the western US. We're not opposed to that, but we're concerned because we haven't been able to identify cost savings and true benefits that would provide back to your community. One of your fastest growing costs here in Lompoc is your transmission cost. The Cal ISO rates are increasing at about 10% per year. And we want to make sure if this goes forward that we're going to be able to control some of those costs. Also this week, the Senate Pro Tem, Senator De Leon, is putting forward Senate Bill 100 that he's introduced, and he's proposing 100% renewable portfolio standard by 2045. Very significant cost impact to your community, as with many communities in California. It was just 2 years ago we negotiated and worked through a 50% by 2030, and now they're proposing 100% by 2045, and 50%, they want to move it sooner to 2026. So a very significant issue going on in Sacramento that could impact your utility and the cost to the ratepayers. Also, state's climate control plan. There was a cap and trade program put in place through 2020. There are a number of legislative bills that would look at beyond 2020. And these are big issues for all of the utilities under NCPA because cap and trade right now, we've been given free credits and we've been doing very well with those. Some folks are trying to change that going forward. A lot of auction revenue was expected. It was meant to pay for the bullet train, and the recent auctions haven't provided much money. So they're looking at new ways to really tax the ratepayers to pay for some of these efforts. So a huge issue for us to advocate. As well, a number of procurement mandates. So these are programs that they would like to mandate on your utility: rooftop solar, energy storage in your community, more energy efficiency. And it's not that they're all bad, it's just we're fighting hard to ensure that this council has local control. You can decide how you want to implement these programs versus mandates. And that's a very significant issue going forward. Now this you can't read, because I can't read it from here, and I know you can't read it, but one thing I just want to point out here, this is the regulatory side. So we have the legislative side, we have the regulatory side. I wanted to point out that in 2012, these were by month the reporting requirements that you had as a utility. Every month there's different reporting requirements. And each year we continue to get more and more, and you can see 2017, how many more reporting requirements that you have as an obligation here within the city. This is staff time. This doesn't mean you're producing more energy or reducing your cost. This is typically going to add cost. It's requiring more staff time and not a lot of benefits. So it's an issue we continue to advocate, but I wanted to make you aware that we continue to see in Sacramento a lot more regulatory reporting requirements being imposed upon the utilities. Some of the big strategic issues, the greenhouse gas requirements of the state. The goals right now are by 2050, 80% reduction. That's 2050. We're already hitting the 2020 target now in emissions. But as you can see, you can reduce all of the emissions in the electric sector, and you still don't come close to where the goals are set. So what does that mean? It means transportation basically has to reduce all of its emissions as well as industrial. And the big trend we're seeing is both industrial and transportation are converting to electric. There are communities in Southern California right now that their new construction codes are saying no gas water heating, no gas cooking, no gas heating in their homes, all electric. And then we're seeing the evolution of the electric vehicle. This is an opportunity for your utility. You're going to see potentially more and more growth of your electric utility as a result of some of these goals going forward, but it's quite a change. The adoption rate of electric vehicles. So Sacramento has put forward by 2050, transportation must be nearly 100% decarbonized. So by 2050, no transportation vehicles in this state can be a fossil fuel, or at least it would have to be a green fuel, I suppose. What they're working on now in a number of the legislative bills is under which path it would go. So these are, again, issues that you need to be aware of strategically as you consider options with your utility and some of your operations. This slide is related to, in the West, we have 38 what we call balancing authorities that the transmission systems all work independently. There is an objective to try to regionalize this and combine them all into just one. A lot of activity going on here, a lot of potential cost and risk. So at NCPA, on behalf of the City of Lompoc and others, we're working to stay very involved to make sure if this goes forward, that it goes forward in a way that it would be a cost reduction or a more efficient process for your community. CCAs. I don't know if you know what CCAs are, but this is community choice aggregation. These are new utilities. This is changing our market in California. Community choice aggregation is a law that went into place a number of years ago that allows communities to start serving their own resources. They don't get to do the wires, they don't get to deliver to the homes, but they can do the generation. And some of the first ones out were Marin Clean Energy, Sonoma Clean Energy, Lancaster. A lot of them were based up in the PG&E service territory, and they provide services at just a little less cost than PG&E rates. But as we can see, in 2017, we have a number of additional ones coming online, including Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and then in 2018, a number of additional ones. What is this doing? Well, PG&E is projected by 2025, 50% of their service territory will be served by these CCAs versus what they do today. So we have a number of new players coming into the market, and they look very similar to your utility, except again, they don't do the wires part of it. PG&E will continue to do that, but they will be in the market competing for some of the same energy resources that you do in your community. California ISO, one of the unique problems we have going on in our electric market right now is this year we have an abundance of water. That's not a bad thing, but it's a challenge versus what's going on with the electric. We have a lot of solar. The yellow is the solar generating, so this was March 1st. The red would be the normal load on the system from the Cal ISO perspective. The actual load, though, net load, was this blue curve. And why? It's because the rooftop solar systems in the state, some of the other renewables. And so, as you can see, we're seeing as this more and more solar is being put in, the load curve is changing dramatically. And the next slide will show you kind of what happens on the price. As prior to when people are getting up in the morning, energy is being consumed, and then what we're seeing now in the middle of the day, right now in spring, we go to negative pricing. California actually has to pay others to take some of its power. There's more power on the system than we have load. And so this is something that we're going to see more frequently in the spring when we have the runoff. And right now with the snowpack melt going on, we have much more energy than we have load on the system. So this is happening almost daily where we're seeing some negative prices. So you might have been familiar past, you'd be more concerned in the off-peak hours. In the evening, that was a lower price time. And people told you to use your electricity in the evenings, don't use it during the middle of the day. During the spring, that's changing. We're going to say people should really focus on charging their electric vehicles. Right in this period, you should use more electricity and not use it in the peak when you come home. So our industry is changing. I wanted to just highlight too for you, this is a comparison of rates of the NCPA different utilities compared to PG&E. And you're in a fairly favorable position. Lompoc continues to be quite competitive. And you're about, I think, from back here, it looks like about 28, 29% below PG&E for your residential customers. PG&E continues to increase their rates quite rapidly. And so this kind of gives you an indication. It's not something that's easy to just read it and say, oh, why am I more than Palo Alto, or why am I more than Santa Clara? Different utilities have legacy assets, meaning they've had assets that are completely paid off. There's no debt any longer to those assets. They have different service territories. The city of Santa Clara, they have so much diversified load on their system that their system is used very efficiently. They have a lot of data centers and other things that use 24/7, so their cost structures are different. but you remain competitive as a utility in comparison to the investor-owned, and you bring value back to the citizens here. And this just highlights kind of where most of the NCPA family resides in renewables. You're in a good position for compliance going forward. Right now, we continue to see the requirements increasing for those renewables, but you're in a good position.
Randy, could you go back to that slide once?
Sure.
Explain to the council the idea of the large hydro, the light blue up there, where we cannot use large hydro as some of our RPS.
Correct. So the definition of renewable energy in California is different than most other state in the country that has a renewable program. California has defined renewables to be small hydroelectric, but large dams do not count. So if you're buying power, as the city of Lompoc does, from the federal government, large hydro, it doesn't count as renewables. But it's emission-free, so you get the benefits there, but it doesn't qualify as renewables. And so what we're trying to show here is that Lompoc would even be higher if you could count that additional blue there as renewables. But it does. If you were to say, how are you doing in the way of an emission-free utility? You're doing better than what you would be doing in renewables. And again, it's a unique definition that California had derived that is different than other states around us. And the last two slides, really, I wanted to focus on, you're in a number of projects. Your utility has done a very good job of diversifying its resource mix, much of that through NCPA. One of the projects you're involved in is a hydroelectric project. It's one of the newest watersheds to be developed in California, and it's between Lake Tahoe and Yosemite. It's on the Stanislaus River, the North Fork. So we have a number of hydro dams along there and generation. And we currently have a license to operate that through 2032. And what I really wanted to highlight was just something that's always a challenge for people to consider. They say, oh, you have this hydroelectric, but we know we just went through a number of years of drought. And during drought periods, your production is relatively low. In a year like this, currently as of January, we were 137% above our expectations, or 137% above. We're now on track for closer to 200% because of the incredible snowpack we have. And so we see our cost where we might have forecasted currently in January at about $48. It's going to come in on an annualized basis much lower than that, we hope, is the way we're seeing it today. But it demonstrates it's hard to plan on, Mother Nature here, how much hydro you're going to get in a given year and what other resources you're going to need. So having some of that diversity that the city of Lompoc does have in its resource mix means that this year you're not using much natural gas for your generation. You're able to take advantage of a great hydro year. But it's that balancing effect. And so it's one of those things you're always going to want to be concerned with is how diversified are we to hedge our risk for cost to the ratepayers. And so with that, I will stop, and I'd be willing to take any questions you might have, but I do thank you again for the opportunity to come and just share a few of the things going on into the future and give you an update of NCPA.
Okay, do we have any questions? Oh, Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation there. To a lot of people, it just goes, over the head, but you do have, there's a lot of interesting data out there. And just to add in a little bit, you were talking about, industries and going electric and stuff. There is another alternative that's happening, and that is industries are leaving.
That's correct.
So there is that aspect. And I found it interesting here as well that during the noon to 5 hours on slide 13, you show that we're having to pay people to take power. Coincidentally, at that time, PG&E, that's peak hour, and that's when you pay the most.
And that's the way the rates are still set up. And that's true in the summer, but right now in the spring, because of the abundance of the hydroelectric and the solar actually performs best in the spring, where we're seeing, and you don't need your air conditioner yet, right? You're not turning your air on.
You're in Lompoc, we don't need those.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, the thing I would be looking at is you've got a lot of power out there, energy out there. You guys looking at investing in some batteries or something to capture all this? That would be my next movement, is how you're going to store all this power instead of paying people to take it.
So the objective of the state, and part of the reason for the regionalization, is there are many other states right now that would pay us to take it, so we can sell it to other states around us. And that's part of the objective of what's going on the regional market. We are seeing storage being developed, but it's still not cost effective. We're not there yet. Are we going to get there? We might. It's being incentivized quite aggressively, or subsidized, I should say, more than incentivized. But we're just not there yet. And I think we're going to continue to stay engaged in that process. Right now, the objective, if we can, is can we sell it to other states around us? We're usually a big importer here in this state, but this time of year, it'd be nice to export most of this into other states.
Or maybe even putting the water pump it below the dam and putting the water back in the dam to take it
Pump
later.
storage is a great program.
Because why lose money when you can
That's
recapture
correct.
it?
And why turn off solar that's free at that point once you've built it?
Or why put carbon electrodes? We don't do that, do we? We burn power back into the ground with the carbon electrodes?
No.
That doesn't happen at all? Right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Randy, thank you very much for the drive. Hopefully you realize what I go through every month now.
I do. It's quite a drive down here, but I appreciate your commitment.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Okay, we are going to move on to city manager's report.
I have nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Councilmember Mosby, I'm sorry.
I don't know what you did at Fleet, and your fleet service was up like 80% of accomplishment this last week. So I don't know whether it was just by odds or whatever it is, but good job.
I know they've been getting a lot of attention and been working hard. And we've just had, we've had some time difficulties with our solid waste fleet. It's kept people in very high production, unfortunately, in that case.
No, I understand you had 2 vacant positions. I don't know if you filled them or not, but
Yeah.
it's tough all the way around.
Okay, thank you. Okay, consent calendar. Consent calendar consists of items that are generally considered routine and will be approved by one motion and a second with the council, unless a council member wishes to pull an item. Does any council wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, we do need to take...
Yes, we want public comment on this. Thank you. Public comment on the consent.
Council members, mayor, public at home, tonight you're going to authorize some more checks, and I'm concerned that the financial condition as shown on the monthly treasurer's report may not be clear or may not have been noticed. So I put together a slide so everybody can see it. Council members, you have one in front of you, and this outlines the change in reserve balances from 2011 through 2016. So if you look at the second to the right-hand column, which is the final reserve for each of those years after corrections, you'll see that it went down a little and it came up, and in 2014 it peaked. In 2015 it went down again, and in 2016 it went down again. And the right-hand column, and that's the June reserve, or the June 30th reserve for, so basically the end of the fiscal year. And the next one over is the December 31st reserve, which is the middle of the next fiscal year. And my concern is that when you get to 2016, in December, we showed a negative balance in the reserve account. So to be $1.4 million negative, we had to borrow some money somewhere else within the city to keep writing checks. Also, if you look at the numbers for 2016 for revenue, you'll note that our revenue also deteriorated by $750,000. Now, there's a requirement that the city have a balanced budget. And we did have a balanced budget when it's passed, but you know, sometimes things don't work out exactly the way we had planned. And I think it's pretty clear here that there are some issues that this council needs to address and the staff needs to help the council with to address our deteriorating condition. For those of you who've been on the council a while, or for all of you out there who have been city employees took 13 days furloughs for 2+ years, and public safety employees took an equivalent pay cut for 2+ years to maintain the city reserve balance that's now gone. I appreciate your attention to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Consent calendar. Okay, seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve consent calendar.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay, staff presentation. We have a staff presentation from the Finance Department on an update on the financial management system.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. What we have today is just a brief presentation. So just for example, today we just spent all day working on purchasing, tomorrow working on bid management, the next day on contract management and fixed assets. And this is a training program where it takes several months to get us fully acclimated to the new software system. So one of the things we try to do is, as you see up front, there's a logo we have. And if you notice, I don't know if you've noticed any of the newsletters we sent out for change management from our old system to our new system. And this little logo in front here, the A1 really represents Alpha 1, the green screen that we use on our computers, and the pencils we've been using up to date. And then it transfers over to the Tyler and Munis systems, which we call the tumbling T's. And this is an evergreen system that will keep our system fresh and new and up to date. So again, this program is several phases. The first phase, we started it in November of 2016, and it won't go live until October of 2017. And this slide you've seen mostly before, except I want to point out that we have added the employee expense reimbursement, which is this line here. And we've taken out this accounts receivable general ledger billing, and we've moved that to phase 3. And the reason why we've done that is because phase 3 is the same time we're going to implement our revenue system and our utility billing, and they'll mirror each other, marriage together, and flow better. And so this employee reimbursement expense is basically our travel and training and tuition reimbursement and other things that employees, if they're traveling and they need per diem costs or something, that we can actually put into the system and get approved electronically, get the checks issued on a timely basis, and it'll be easier to catch the flow and process it. We're going to start it out in accounts payable, and then it's going to transfer into the payroll system. So it's a little bit more seamless. I mean, it's seamless than what we have to do now, is it's submitted from the department, and it goes into a clerk that checks it, and then it goes to each department head, and then it goes into actually cutting a check manually and then reimbursing the check and manual check to our accounting system now. And so it's very cumbersome, and this will clean up the process, make it quick. You'll be able to see where it is in the approval process, and everything will be a lot more transparent. We're very excited about getting this item started. These items all up here are the modules that we're working on, including the fixed asset. These are things that are integrated with our modules, and so workflow is kind of a approval process of who gets to see what, where it has to go to get approval. The roles are, determining, like if it's an OSA, an office assistant that's going to be able to see it, or how much they need to see. It's supposed to help each user find the information they need in a quicker method. So we're very excited about that. And currently we're working on the workflow, the roles, the interfaces, and the forms. So again, this is, you've seen this before, it's just explaining to you each of the processes we go through and how we get to be ready, so when we go into October, it's a smooth process versus saying, I don't understand it. This gives us a chance to make sure that the users are comfortable. And so what we're doing right now is training the finance group, the purchasing group, and then later on in August and September, the final users, which in each department will be able to be trained, and basically it will be the staff here that will train the end users on this. So March and April activities, IS has got our training laptops purchased and set up, and they're helping us implement and import the chart of accounts into training. The chart of accounts has been modified a little bit so that it has an org code, which identifies the organization that it belongs to. So, say water would be specifically set up with a code that's unique to them, and then we'll have object code, which is our expenditure codes that they can work with. Working with the conversion data, again, we're working with a system that some of the databases are 30 years old, and they're not set up exactly the way that they can easily transport over, so that it's a combination of working with the data, doing some hand entries and other things. So we've gone in the phase 1 group, which is the finance group, we've gone through the analysis process, which is them showing us what they can do, the city showing Tyler what we've been working with. Then we went through a set of parameters, which said, okay, do you still want to do it that way, or do you want to proceed in a new method? Then we had process training, which gets into more details and more settings, saying, okay, if you want to do this way, then these are the levels of things you need to fill out. May and June, we're going through more training. It will be on all the modules that are there. So we've got inventory, general ledger, project ledger. Project ledger is an extension of almost of the general ledger, as it'll allow us to track grant projects and capital outlay projects that might take several years. Budget analysis, fixed assets. That should be a space, my apologies. Cash management, The conversion analysis, we're still working on converting some of our databases over. Purchasing, bid contract, accounts payable, and again, this employment expense reimbursement. As we go further, and starting in August, we'll start scheduling out how we're going to get our HR and our payroll system going. Phase 3 will be utility billing, 4 work orders, and the 5th phase would be community development, such as even further, planning and business licenses and other things that relate to public, sorry. And if you have any questions on that, I'd like to be able to answer your questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Mosby.
Again, I want to say how excited you are about the program.
I am just so excited.
It's nice to see you pumped up. And some of the key words I was writing down that you were putting off there, that this system, and for the public to understand what it is that's going on, is a system that's, the new one's going to be, as you said, easier, timely, able to get reports timely, seamless, quick, able to see, more transparent, comfortable for the user. And one of the words you said, that what we have right now is cumbersome. And again, not everybody's been watching exactly what's going on, but maybe you could just, in brief, explain what we were doing and what we're doing now. The old system we had since what was it?
I think one quick example is just to compare how one person reports their time, the process it goes through, versus what we're going to do.
For example, we have a purchase order. If someone, we do have a better purchasing system than we did several years ago, because that is automated right now. There isn't a vendor sign up. But once we get the purchase order done in purchasing, it doesn't talk to the financial system. So you've got the purchasing department setting up the purchase order. Then it has to go over and it has to be checked. If there's money available in that account, if that account is correct, things can be entered into the purchasing system that can't be checked on the budgeting system. This will not allow you to put in a code that's incorrect or there's not enough money. So it goes from purchasing to accounts payable saying that all the money's there and that's available, but it still has to go through a workflow to say, oh yeah, that's an appropriate item to spend, so we can have someone enter it. Right now, the paper gets passed around. And to know exactly where that paper is, whose desk it might have landed on, where the approval process is, takes a while. So it could be 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks, or something gets left on a desk, someone's on vacation, you don't know. The system can do it electronically, where the new system will say, okay, it needs to go to Ray first to be approved if it's under 10,000. If it's over 10,000 to 25,000, goes to Brad. This can all be done at the same time, where we tell the system we need both the approvals of Ray and Brad, and if it's over 125,000, it needs to be approved through City Council. But between 25,000 and 125,000, it needs to go to Patrick. So this will say, okay, I need all 3 of them to approve. And so they can approve upon their time. Now, if they're gone on 2 weeks vacation, they can assign someone in their place to do that approval. So you don't have to wait 2 weeks until someone gets back. Oh, it was stuck in somebody's box and they're on vacation and we have to wait. So it's going to be a lot smoother. It's going to be quicker. People can check to see where it is in the approval process. That's just one example.
And using the old 1986 computer that we have, right? So we're updating the computer to new software, and we can let go of the pigeons that we used to use, right, in between departments.
Well, we'll still use
A couple pigeons?
Manage for historical documents, but everything, as soon as we go live, then everything will be started on the new server. So.
Mr. Wilkie, did you have a comment?
I'd like to just follow up a little bit on what Melinda said about the efficiencies that will come into place with the new system. We do have a fairly good purchasing system but it's separate from our finance system. So the end users wouldn't necessarily be able to see if they're requisitioning something within the budgetary constraints that they have. With a new system, as soon as somebody enters in a requisition to buy a widget and they put in the account number that they're going to be charging, that shows up on their budget to actual reports even before the actual item is purchased. So the end user departments and divisions will have a much, much better ability to manage their budgets compared to how we were doing it now, which is very much more manual and a little bit behind, because at this point in time, requisitions don't even go into the budget process until they become a purchase order. So there could be 2 or 3 weeks delay between when somebody commits to buy something to when that's actually showing up in their budgetary controls. So it has a huge effect, not just on how things are processed through accounts payable and through purchasing, but how the individual department is managing their funds. So,
Mr. Weinmiller.
Yeah, I just wanted to, and just highlighting so many potential savings here, not only efficiencies and transparencies, but actual savings. We reduce the number of times that somebody has to handle a transaction without sacrificing our control features. The amount of paper that we're not going to have to use is, that we will be able to just transfer stages of accounting electronically is pretty phenomenal, and all that just reduces any likelihood. We have a very methodical and careful staff, but it just reduces any opportunity of error that much more, and as they pointed out, less likely to lose anything. I just wanted to make a quick testimony about the project itself. I happened to be, this last Thursday, I spent the day helping the city of Goleta in their in their selection process of a new finance director, and one of the things being highlighted as a need was the fact that they're getting ready to put in a new financial system, and so they were giving a premium consideration to candidates who had already been through a process like that before, and it came about in a question about what are the best practices in putting a new system into place, and what can you anticipate. And it was very encouraging to me to hear time and time again the best practices that were being described were things that Melinda and the team, the citywide team, had done, that we had put into place. Indeed, a multidisciplinary team to help work through. We were holding the consultants' feet to the fire at every step. We weren't allowing for bracket creep. We were making sure we were clear on what our outcomes were as we entered in the process, so we knew where we were going and the path to get there the whole way. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the great job that's going on managing the project, which itself is an incredibly complex endeavor.
Thank you. Councilmember Starbuck.
And with well over $1 million into this project, we are doing a good job, I feel. I wanted to ask, this Munis newsletter,
Yes.
did issue 3 come out, or did I miss it?
Yeah, issue 3 came out.
I did. I must have missed it then, because, not only does it have the very detailed schedule on the back, I love the narratives because, A, it gives me a little insight into what is actually happening with it far beyond this brief. So if somebody could slip me issue 3 and probably the rest of the council, I'd love to continue to receive my subscription.
We do also have it on the intranet for all in-city employees.
Oh, I don't know the intranet
Okay.
at all. I'm not even Tyler trained here. I just like the blue and green copies and stuff.
Yeah, thank you, yes. The newsletter is put on by a change management committee. We get together once a month just to talk about things that we think might be interesting for people. And
I'm very interested.
thank you.
Anything else? Well, Melinda, thank you very much. And congratulations to you and your team for the great job you're doing, so.
Thank you. They're a great team. I can't say enough about the city employees and all the help that they're willing to do to get this going for us.
Okay. Well, thank you for the report. Oral communications. This is your opportunity to speak to us for anything that is before this council. You can speak for up to 3 minutes. Yes. Yeah, if you have a comment about something on the agenda, it's best to hold it for later, but you're more than willing to, I mean, you can do it now, if it's... Not on the agenda. Yes, not on the agenda, sure, come on up.
Except it's my turn. Good evening, my name's Anne Roger. I'm a 23-year resident of Lompoc, and I was on the city council for 4 years. There have been a couple of, I want to comment on a couple of articles that have appeared in our news media. One was written by the chairman of the LPOA. The other one was by a journalist who writes quite often in the paper and also on Newshawk and the Record. I don't know what's transpired, why 3 members of our council did not appear to one of our fallen officers' memorial service. I wanted to commend Mayor Lingle and Councilmember Osborne for coming to that service. I know it was very appreciated. I don't know what your excuses were for the rest of you, but you do represent the city and the citizens, and I think you should have been there. I was appalled to read that happened that way. As I say, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I think you owe apologies to the police department. In setting your priorities, and this sort of goes along with the same thing, when you set your priorities a while back, you put, I believe it was jobs, housing, and public safety as third. And it seems to me it's kind of illogical to ask for jobs and housing when you do not have a stronger infrastructure. And part of that infrastructure is the police and fire department or public safety people. And I would like to see those priorities changed. I don't know how you go, well, I do know how you can go about it, but I'd like you to rethink that, because I think it's important that our public safety, the fire department and the police department, the men and women who work so hard for us, put their lives on the line every day. Look what just happened in Fresno, and which was pretty close to our town. I think we need to set our priorities to have public safety first. I understand about finances. I was on the council when we had to cut salaries, was it 5% across the board, and that was not a fun couple of years for any of us. And I do understand the budget, but I think you need to show some respect to those men and women who work so very hard and are so very well trained. Right now, both departments are have lost a lot of people, and we need to get those departments up at full force. So I wish you'd consider that, and I again want to thank Mayor Lingle and Janelle Osborne for attending that service. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Marquette. I'm not a citizen of Lompoc. In fact, I am a guest. I'm staying at the RV park out at the City Park, River Park, City Park. As a guest, as a visitor, I thought this should become an issue you should be aware of. This last Friday, there was a violent pit bull attack inside your park. It's pretty clear as a guest there that you have a large population of homeless in the area, and a lot of them are using that park as a home, which is, I mean, I understand that. That's neither here nor there. But what's lacking is management of that park and the situation that's there. In my opinion, the city is probably liable for the damages that pit bull caused, because that person that owned that pit bull was a long-term guest at this park, had that pit bull chained out to that picnic table pretty much all day long, every day. Never was removed. It broke its chain, attacked a woman's dog, killed it. It's the first time I've ever witnessed a pit bull attack. I was there. I kicked that pit bull 5 times in the place you never kick anybody, and it never released. The dog is dead now. So I'd present to the city that you should be aware of this situation that's going on in your city park, and be aware that you have an asset sitting there that could bring significant revenue into your city, and you're currently letting it sit and lose money and be used as both a homeless shelter and an area that's run down. As not a resident, as just a visitor, I just thought it's something I should bring up to your attention and hope you do look into it in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment. I think one of our ordinance, we have an ordinance against vicious dogs that are not allowed in the city. Is that correct? Can someone comment on that? I'm asking the city staff.
Well, we have a process for dealing with dogs. Once there's been an attack, you can't, nobody has a vicious dog crystal ball, for instance. But we do have a process for handling once a dog's engaged in behavior that, an attack or something like that. And we do have a process.
So it's once it's determined to be a vicious dog.
Right.
Okay. But I want to thank you for your comments. Thank you. That was just made aware. I was just made aware of that today, and it was a terrible incident. So, anyone else? Okay. Seeing no one rise, we're going to close oral communication. Bring it back to the council. Public hearing. This is item number 5. Public hearing to consider Measure A, 5-year local program of projects for the fiscal year 17-18. That is Craig. Okay.
Thank you for taking the time this evening to consider how Measure A provides critical funding for the city's street-related operations and infrastructure. This presentation includes the city's proposed 5-year Measure A program of projects, and each year the city is required to adopt that program in order to receive its allocation of Measure A funding beginning July 1st. So this slide shows Measure A is the largest source of road revenue for the city. It's the green on the bottom of the slide. This slide matches the Table 1 shown in the staff report, which includes one proposed source here in yellow, not existing, approved already, but proposed, and the other sources are existing. Road funds are used for many purposes, and the two main categories of those purposes are citywide operations to keep things working, and capital projects which extend useful life. And the citywide operations are very broad, as listed here. Just a few highlights, including patching and sealing and evaluating street pavement, repairing and upgrading sidewalks and concrete, maintaining street trees and vegetation, traffic striping, signs and signals, street drainage, and a number of other operations. Capital projects, on the other hand, we focused heavily on pavement rehabilitation since that is the majority of our ongoing need, but other major upgrades to the transportation network are also included in capital projects. So this is a photo of operations. Operations are continually working and available to keep streets safe and usable, but they don't always add useful life, as shown here. Cleaning up the tree damage doesn't help the pavement last longer. So this is a capital project which does add useful life, but capital projects are limited in their timing, their location, their contract scope, and because they provide a lasting benefit, they are more expensive as a unit cost. So a complete street program includes both operations and capital projects. So operations here on the left, pothole patching, tree trimming, traffic striping, sidewalk repair, and capital project on the right, removal and replacement of pavement. Currently, road needs exceed revenues, as discussed in the staff report. City road revenues have primarily come from sources outside of the city. For many reasons, over the last few years, state and federal road funding has declined. What the city's received has declined. Because road needs exceed revenues, the city has already significantly reduced both operations and capital projects. Without operations, the daily and immediate needs cannot be met, and without capital projects, the street pavement and other infrastructure conditions decline. This is a slide of where we are currently with our PCI. The current overall citywide PCI is 58. If you exclude alleys from that calculation, it's a 62. The industry standard goal is 70, and color-coded here are just different categories of pavement condition from very good down to very poor. Over the past 10 years, this slide shows in the magenta bars the construction cost expenditures for capital projects involving pavement, and it shows in the blue colored line where the PCI was each of those years. So though we've been expending, if you add all these expenditures up and divide by 10, we've been expending over $1 million per year for the past 10 years. Not $1 million every year, but on average. Even with those expenditures and using cost-effective methods in contracting and in pavement repair, our PCI has still declined from a 68 10 years ago to a 58 now. Here's a projection for the next 10 years, depending upon 3 expenditure scenarios: a $0 per year for capital projects, $1 million per year, and $5 million per year. This is using industry standard methods. So if you'll notice on this last slide, we spent a little over $1 million a year on average, and we declined 10 points. This slide shows spending $1 million a year starting at 58 and going down to about 43. So if the last 10 years we did a little better than that and we only declined 10 points, we may be able to do a little better than this with our cost-effective methods, but we're still looking at a steady decline with an expenditure of only $1 million per year. Here's what different PCIs look like. This is a PCI of 72, and basically it's that low primarily because of these two, the beginning of load-related cracks in each of these wheel paths. So they're not severe yet, so the PCI is still pretty good, but it's the beginning. This next one on the right is a PCI of 58. You're seeing a little more spreading of those cracks in the wheel paths. So here's that same picture, the 58. This one's a 43, where the crack has developed into a little broader alligator. There's a patched pothole up there you may not be able to see. So when we, thinking back to a few slides ago where the PCI was, where it is, and where it's headed, 43 is the projected 10-year PCI, spending $1 million per year using industry standard methods. However, we're hopeful we can do better than that if we have that funding available to us. The city's pavement management system reports it will take $37 million to get up to a 70 from the 58 we are currently at, and it will take $6 million to maintain either a 58 or a 70, just to hold the PCI level. However, using all proposed revenue sources shown in the program or project, shown in the program projects and shown in the staff report, table 1, all of those sources combined will only provide the city approximately $1 million per year for capital projects, which are shown in the overlays and rehabilitation row in the program spreadsheet. And those are the projects that extend the useful life and keep the PCI from declining or improve it if you spend enough. Citywide street, urban forestry, and engineering division operations require all of the city's existing road revenues. So looking at table 1 in the staff report, the bottom row is an assumption of a proposed revenue source with the the state's recent passage of a gas tax increase and all of our other existing sources, we may be able to just break even funding operations with no capital at all. So here it says, unless a new funding source is provided, no revenue is currently available for capital projects, which are the overlays and rehabilitation that maintain the PCI and extend the useful life. Though available funding is substantially below the desired level, even with $1 million per year for capital as assumed, staff will continue to implement cost-effective strategies to extend the useful life of street infrastructure to the extent possible. Some of the cost-effective strategies we've been using have included operationally striving to improve the efficiency of operations, which keeps street infrastructure safe and usable, as well as cutting costs where we can when positions become vacant. We have kept many of those vacant in order to reduce operational costs while our revenues have been low. On the capital project side, staff has utilized and plans to continue to utilize a number of cost-effective pavement treatments in order to extend the useful life at several times less cost than traditional rehabilitation methods. We've also scheduled different types of those cost-effective treatments sequentially in order to provide a complete resurfacing, a complete solution so the pavement can achieve a long-lasting rehabilitation. So moving into our POP spreadsheet that was an attachment to the resolution, this slide represents expenditures for fiscal year 15-16, as shown in the POP, not the far left-hand column, but the first column with numbers in it. So here's the expenditures for street maintenance division, engineering division. We had an overlay and rehab project that year using funds from the previous budget cycle that had carried over, and we have urban forestry division. Down here, this maintenance and repair of bike and ped facilities is higher than the average that we shoot for on an annual basis, primarily because there was a legal requirement to upgrade up to 20% of the cost of our Cape Seal project, upgrade curb ramps, up to 20% of the cost of our Cape Seal project, and we used Measure A funds for those pedestrian upgrades so that we could count them as a alternative transportation expenditure. So we were required to do those upgrades, and we just tried to maximize the benefit of using this funding to perform them. Next slide is the proposed expenditures for the next 10 years. So the top rows are actually carryover revenue, what we project to be available July 1st from the current budget cycle carrying forward into the next. And then the second row is what we expect in allocations as estimated by SBCAG for each year of the 5-year program. Down lower are the proposed expenditures for street maintenance, engineering, overlays and rehabilitation, urban forestry. As you can see, there's a proposed overlay and rehabilitation line that's about $1 million per year till we get to the end where we don't have quite enough money to sustain that expenditure. And then down on the bottom, we have our proposed bike and ped expenditures to try to shoot for the 15% that we are required to do by the measure. So this slide is the bottom left corner of the POP spreadsheet. Basically reiterates that we're required to spend 15% of our Measure A allocation on alternative transportation. And this is a summary of how we propose to do that. It's based on a 5-year total. So the 5-year cycle we're in now is 15-16 through 19-20. So the total proposed expenditures for that 5-year cycle is almost 1.7 million, which equates to 15.1% of our allocation, our projected allocation for those 5 years. So just to reiterate, the POP proposed currently assumes a new revenue source, like shown in the staff report, in the amount of the proposed enterprise reimbursement funding, and that results in our $1 million a year annual street capital project ability. With those assumptions, the PCIs will still decline. However, staff will continue to use cost-effective strategies to maximize pavement benefit. The city needs to adopt its POP to receive Measure A funds beginning July 1st. However, we know the budget cycle is still going on, so we can bring back the POP amended according to match the budget. So our recommendations are to hold the public hearing, to consider this program of projects, to adopt the resolution, or to provide alternate direction. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Mr. Deerling, since our average is, what, 68 right now?
58 is our
58, yeah.
overall PCI average.
So if it's 58, we have some 65, 70, and some 40, 45, right?
Correct, yeah, we're across the board.
And I think I've heard that we have all of our streets on a schedule that we go out to try to maintain them. But do we have a priority? For instance, if we have a street that's currently a 65, 68, and it's starting to show some wear, do we put a little bit more priority on that to maintain that, as opposed to trying to repair one that's a 40 or 43 that much more costly? Do we have a priority such as that?
The way we have been prioritizing in recent years has been safety first. So like the overlay we did on Central Avenue a couple of years back, where it was a 55-mile-per-hour zone and potholes were developing, that quickly becomes a safety hazard. So safety was first. Volume is usually second, so how many cars are passing. And third, generally we try to make it as cost effective as possible. So like you're saying, if there's a treatment that makes sense, that we can, overall most of our streets need this type of treatment, and we can combine and get a good economy of scale, yeah, that's basically our third criteria, has generally been what will give us the best bang for the buck.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Deerling? Councilmember Mosby.
On the one slide where you're talking about the PCI trend, and you've got a pretty smooth line going down, is that going out and measuring all the times to get that line, or is there an equation that you use to have the trend of that curve of that line?
The future projection is pure equation, so it's based on the data that's in our pavement management system, which is dependent upon inspections that the city or consultants perform, as well as treatments that have been performed on that section and the PCIs that have resulted from those inspections and those treatments. The program combines all of that data and produces a projection for that street based upon how it is performed and what has happened to it.
So do all streets have the same equation? Or are some trending faster going down than others? Or
some trend faster, yeah. Basically, the streets that have the most truck traffic are going to decline the fastest.
And some streets might not have any trending down, right? Some streets won't, but lose little PCI.
Yeah, right. Residential streets that have little truck traffic decline more slowly.
And when you spend most of your time focusing on streets that seem to be falling faster, main thoroughfares and safety issues and such. So there is, this equation is kind of, like you say, it's a 10-year trend, and it's the best estimate that you can put forward there, but it can, and a lot of streets won't see that same downtrend. Some of them will be more flat, like the residentials that don't have the traffic and stuff.
True, some may be more flat. Typically, if a number of inspections have been done, the program flattens the lines for those streets that it sees you're inspecting. You have points on your curve that are becoming more flat. It'll flatten the line and project it less steep. And then the other way is true for streets that decline fast.
And in streets that have the real low PCI, I mean, we don't have the money necessarily to go to a street that's a 20 or 25. That's kind of a full facelift redo, right?
I would say it depends on its traffic level. If we had funding to get through our priority list down to streets that were low volume streets don't take as much to bring back up to a serviceable level as high-volume streets do. So it would take a lot more to take Central Avenue from potholes to a 10-year-plus life than it would a residential street.
And one last question, is this a normal, on your pie chart here, on what we're looking at? Because we have general fund maintenance at 8%. Is that kind of standard for the industry amongst all the communities, that they're just using it seems like a small number?
Yeah, I don't know what's standard amongst agencies. That particular amount, I understand, was required when Prop 42 passed for us to get funds that way back in the late 90s. So that component has been required since then to continue to receive funds that way. Other MOE requirements have come about through Measure D and now Measure A.
And definitely, if we had more money in the general fund, we might have an opportunity to put more in there and help with the maintenance.
We'll take any money you'll give us.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Starbuck.
Just a couple of clarification questions from me, Craig, please. So basically on this, our PCI is actually 62 if we were to not incorporate the alleys in.
Correct.
This is what it says here. So if we had a street with a 20, that would drop our PCI average to where it actually would make us look a lot worse than we actually are, true?
It's basically an area calculation, so it would drop it more, yes.
Significant,
The PCI times the area, basically, yeah, so.
How do you do the area calculation would be the follow-on question here, because, I mean, is it a depreciation? Okay, we're at 70, next year we're 69, we're 68, or do we physically go out and survey the streets? I mean, how do we come up with this actual number?
The program has the street widths and lengths in it, so it knows the geometric area, and the PCIs are input in the program from inspections, and they are increased when treatments happen, like an overlay or a major rehabilitation or a chip seal or a slurry seal or something. The program will give an increase in PCI based upon the type of treatment. So initially, at the outset of the program, inspections were done citywide, and then periodically additional inspections are done, and then every time a treatment is done, the PCI is adjusted based upon that treatment.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Craig. We'll open this up to public comment.
I apologize, I failed to state my name the first time. John Lynn, Lompoc resident. I have one concern with regard to the staff report. It would appear from the report that we're going to try to drive the amount of money that's going to be transferred from utilities for street maintenance by our needs. That's not what the proposition allows. The proposition allows the reasonable transfer of costs. There are any number of great programs out there. The city of Fullerton did one, the city of San Francisco did one. There are a large number of them that could be legally and legitimately used. I would caution any effort on the part of anyone to drive the transfer amount based on some city need. We've avoided litigation on this subject, and I hope we can continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. Discussion? Someone like to entertain a motion? Councilor Mosby.
I'll make a motion for staff recommendation.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion? Let's vote. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 6, which is new business. Consideration of memorandum of understanding, an MOU for participation in the development and implementation of Santa Barbara County-wide Integrated Stormwater Resources Plan. Stacy.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Before you, that is consideration of memorandum of understanding for participation in development and implementation of a stormwater resource plan. And the plan would be required only if we determined that we wanted to compete for the state funding for stormwater infiltration projects. Other features are permitted, some treatment, et cetera, but it appears that the primary focus is for stormwater infiltration. While it may be, some positive benefits in the long term of going in with other agencies in our county and participating in this project, there are some very specific costs to that participation in the form of $57,583. And while there is some potential for having some of the work we've done before this time qualify as a part of the match, there's no guarantee that, no one has reviewed that, and there's no guarantee that that would be included in the match. So there is a potential straightforward and irreversible requirement for us to pay the $57,583 or equivalent should we determine that, should you determine that the MOU is something that you want to sign. Staff, in looking at various projects that might benefit Lompoc, could not identify any that would be located potentially in Lompoc that we would find desirable. The other factor is that we don't have a lot of stormwater to capture, and we don't have a river that's running, so any stormwater that comes out generally infiltrates anyway. So with that, staff recommends the City Council adopt Resolution 610917, directing the city manager to execute the memorandum of understanding for participation in the MOU, direct staff to forego participation as a cooperating entity and participate as a stakeholder without the requirement of the contributing in the funds, or provide alternative direction. Thank you, and are there questions?
So Stacy, if I'm understanding you correct, if we enter into this agreement, sign the memorandum of understanding, there's no guarantees, yet we will be, regardless, we will be liable for the $57,000.
Correct, that's your guarantee,
Okay.
that you'll be alive.
Okay, and if we took option number 2 and just forgo it and just participate as a stakeholder, we get nothing, but it costs us nothing.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Mosby.
I wonder if you can elaborate. I mean, you kind of hit on the points here, being a little PC, but if you can, in the report, you're a little more solid, and you said, and I'll read the part of the sentence here. It says, with limited opportunity to benefit from the implementation of the CISRP and an unknown future commitment of resources, determining the fiscal impact to this city at this time of participation as a cooperative entity would be subject to a significant amount of uncertainty. If you elaborate on that significant amount of uncertainty a little bit.
Okay. At this point, should the council determine that they wanted to participate in the MOU, we would participate as a cooperating entity. The plan, the resource plan, would be written by a consultant hired by the County of Santa Barbara, and that consultant would come up with 5 top projects. Those 5 top projects would be 5 projects within the county, participating agencies, and those projects would then be mapped out, preliminary plans drawn, and then submitted to the state for competitive funding for the infrastructure aspect of the Prop 1 funds. The likelihood, I think, of Lompoc having one of those 5 is pretty slim. If one of those 5 is chosen by the state to receive the funds, and they'll be competing against all the other cities and counties in the state, then They would also, these are kind of big ticket project numbers that they're looking for, $300,000, so then you would have a match because it's a 50% match. And so if you went further in the process and if you ended up with a project, you would have the match costs as well. And because we don't have a lot of stormwater on a normal basis, and even in this, especially rainy year, we haven't had unusual rain and we're still in a drought. We don't see a big potential for capturing stormwater and infiltrating it. So that's where, some of the projects that they've talked about are dry wells where you would bring a bunch of stormwater into one place and infiltrate it. But looking at the way the town's laid out and the way our stormwater system works and the fact we don't get much rain, I think that we would have a limited benefit there. Also, green streets, which involve tearing up your streets, which we don't really want to do, and creating gardens which you'd have to water. Those may not be a priority for the council.
Thank you.
Councilmember Vega.
Stacy, bottom line here is if we forego and we just turn into a stakeholder, or we decide not to participate at all, what's the negative ramification of no participation, okay? Obviously, there's no benefit either way. Could you kind of tell me that part?
Again, it's no guarantees, but it's somewhat, there may be some concern on the part of other agencies that we didn't participate, but we do have a substantial portion of the amount that we would have to pay in. And there would be potentially some information that would come out of the plan that would be helpful in the future, but after evaluating, what I've seen thus far, it doesn't appear that that information would be so critical. We also would have an opportunity, should the city come to the point where they had a project that they really wanted to fund in this manner, they could write the resource plan themselves, get a consultant, city could write it and submit it to the state, and then submit for competitive funds.
So there's really no good reasons to be even a stakeholder at this time because of our demographics in our area and because of rainfall totals here in this area? Is that also a true statement?
It's hard to, there may be some just cooperative information exchange that's a benefit, but
Someone
no
going to get
clear
angry
benefit.
at us for not participating because we're not part of the club, or is it just extra work for us as far as staff time?
It could mean extra work for us as part of staff time in meeting attendance or telephone conferences to be a stakeholder.
Yeah.
And so that is a consideration. And yes, maybe it would make it more difficult for the other cooperating agencies to move forward, but it's really about Lompoc and about Lompoc's decision how we're going to benefit.
I agree. It should be about us. And again, I had to bring up that fact that it could cost us staff time just to be a stakeholder with no benefits coming out at all, unless you can present those at all, which you couldn't. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, appreciate it.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Stacey, one of the things I find interesting on here is the two biggest cities in the county are not in this. They're actually stakeholders. I notice, interesting enough, in community service districts, the Mission Hills has been just kind of put, they're absent. The rest of these are all, I'm going to use the word pretty much environmental activists. Yeah, I'm kind of confused with this. Why don't we join the top two cities? We're the third biggest city, and become a stakeholder. I mean, is it because they have enough money to cover it no matter what happens, or is Mission Hills just going to go under the radar? Could we do like them? What is, I need a little clarity with this.
Okay, so because of the purpose of Prop 1, the only real reason to do a resource plan is if you are thinking of a project that you want to try to compete for state funds to implement. And so I don't think the Community Services District necessarily has such a project. for the Community Services District. However, the City of Santa Barbara and the City of Santa Maria are not cooperating entities because they have decided to write their own plans.
Don't we have a stormwater plan? I thought we approved one that we would have our own also then.
You have a stormwater ordinance and you have a stormwater program, but you don't have this very specifically defined by the state stormwater resource plan that is required under Proposition 1.
Should we?
If you wish to apply for the competitive funding at some future time, you would need to have a plan in place and approved by the state. But if you do not envision such a project at this time, it's not required. There's no legal requirement at this point to have such a plan.
Do we have any projects coming down the road that would require us to have this plan?
In evaluating the possibility of projects, we have not been able to come up with any projects that would qualify, and they'd have to be pretty big ticket item, large projects. And then they'd have to be able to successfully compete against all the rest of the proposed projects in the state, from Santa Barbara or Santa Maria or Sacramento or Los Angeles, San Diego, etc.
Could we get a buy-in later? We could become a stakeholder now, and whenever years down the road, then we could become a member?
I don't know that that would be an option, but we certainly would have the option of writing our own plan like Santa Maria and Santa Barbara did.
I mean,
if we
plagiarizing
decided-
is easy.
if we decided that we needed a plan.
Anyone else? Thank you, Stacy. Okay, we'll open this up to the public. Anyone want to talk to us on this? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. Any discussion, or I'll entertain a motion.
I was wondering if the city manager wanted to weigh in on this. You're looking like you're having too much fun there on there.
Yeah. Well, definitely of the three, for my book, A is out. I don't want to commit to spend that much money when it's not likely we're going to have a return on investment. So now it's a matter of do we become stakeholders or not? And given that we've evaluated, staff's evaluated that we haven't been able to identify yet the types of projects that we'd be taking on that would then merely, that we need one of those to even get into what's then a sweepstakes, still no guarantee. I'd probably decline becoming a member.
Anyone else? Oh, Councilmember Vega.
I also concur. I think that if there's no benefit to Lompoc at this time, even long-term, that's what we have staff for, is to present any long-term projects that would come up. It looks like even being a stakeholder seemed like it would just expend staff time in the middle of our budget process, which all of you guys are looking at closely to see, hey, where were we wasting money or where we're not. We have an opportunity to save a few bucks with no benefit right now. So, I know unless Bob has another kind of a motion, I'd like to make a motion that we decline even participation in this at all.
Is that number 2?
No, it's not.
No, he's
Number 3.
Number 3,
okay?
just,
We don't want to be a stakeholder, we don't want to participate, we just want to decline participation at all, since there's no benefit at all except for the use of staff time, which I'm sure staff time can be better utilized in other ways.
With the intent of ultimately becoming in compliance, but doing it a different way.
no, I understand. I'll give you a second on that. I just wanted to be real clear with
Thank you,
the
sir.
number.
In the middle of our budget concerns, I think we should show we're going in the same direction as far as saving a few bucks where we can.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Lawson, would you come back up once real quick? I'm a little torn on this. I understand Councilmember Vega's concern of, we don't have a lot of staff time, but I was, up until Councilmember Vega made the motion, I was leaning towards becoming a stakeholder. Can you weigh in on this a little bit for us?
Okay. My understanding of the process in developing this plan is that there is a large list of stakeholders and that a stakeholder has an opportunity to comment on the plan. However, I would expect that the plan would be publicly circulated anyway, and basically any member of the public should be able to comment on the plan. The stakeholders would be invited to a specific meeting. Where it would be hoped that one would be in the North County and one in the South County, and that those participants as stakeholders could stand up in the meeting and give their comments on the plan.
Do you see an advantage to us being a stakeholder?
Not particularly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote. That passes 5-0. Okay, item number 7, resurvey of speed zones. So this should be fun. Mr. Luther. I'm sorry? Oh,
Could you make sure your mic's in front of you?
thank you.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, citizens. Tonight I'm bringing forward what's a pretty routine item. In order for the police department to enforce posted speed limits using radar, you have to follow state code, California Vehicle Code, in establishing those speeds. So I'm just going to give a brief description of how that's done, and so it's California Vehicle Code. You establish the speed limits. There's typically what they call prima facie speed limits, which means on face value. Here's some standard prima facie speed limits. Alleys in the city, they're not posted, but the legal speed limit's 15 miles per hour. On any residential street, school zones, business zones, even if any street that's basically not posted with the speed limit is 25 miles per hour, or by establishing a speed survey, which is what we're doing tonight. So in order for the police department to set up, to radar, to address citizen complaints about speeding on the street with radar, you need to have these things established. They're typically good for 5 years once you establish one, but based on certain criteria, they can be extended for up to 7 years, and then again up to 10 years. The one we're looking at tonight has already been extended up to the 10-year maximum. So if you don't have one of these speed studies, an established speed zone, and the police department uses radar, and they write a ticket, that's what is considered a speed trap. It's an illegal enforcement, and if somebody challenges that in court, it will typically get thrown out. These are just the things we look at. We look at what are people driving on the street. We look at accident history. We look at road conditions that may not be apparently visible, like blind spots, vertical curves that people might not see, residential density, pedestrian bicycle use. So the California Vehicle Code basically lays out the rules for establishing these, and they're pretty strict. We don't have a lot of flexibility. We basically go out, we take radar, we figure out what the public is driving on the street, and the California law basically establishes that They consider that most drivers drive at a reasonable and prudent speed based on conditions, so that's how you establish the speed. So the speed limit should be established at the nearest 5 miles per hour to the 85th percentile speed, which is the speed at which at or below 85% of the people driving on the street are driving at during uninterrupted flow. So staff's recommending that you adopt the resolution in front of you so that the police department has the ability to use radar to enforce speeds on these streets. Here's the map that shows the streets that were studied and the speeds. There was only one change per the staff report on page 2. So Laurel Avenue between O Street and H Street is, based on the speed study, would go from 30 miles per hour up to 35 miles per hour, which actually matches the rest of Laurel Avenue. And we added one new section, which didn't have a speed study on it before, and that is Olive Avenue between Bailey and U Street. We added that at the request of, during our consultation with the police department. They've gotten several requests to do speed enforcement in that section of the road, but there's just no ability because it didn't have a study on it. And then, assuming that you reestablish the speeds, this is the map of all the studied streets in the city. And I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Mr. Luther, this not necessarily dealing with any of these streets, but last time we did this, maybe the time before, on the north end of town, we adjusted the speeds coming into town, and within about a quarter-mile distance, it goes from 55 to 45 to 35. Have we restudied that? From what I understand, that's caused a lot of accidents up in that area.
Well, those aren't established by the city. Those are established by Caltrans. So I've never studied that.
But we had to prove that, though. That came before us for approval.
No, we didn't approve that.
Must have just been
I think it was brought before an informational item, but.
Okay. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Luther? Councilmember Mosby.
So which streets in town can they use radar? All of them, or just the ones you've done the speed study on, or those that are already?
Just the ones that are on the map, that last map.
Not this one or the one before this one?
This one right here. That's every street that's been established by ordinance. We have several ordinances that establish them because we don't do all the streets at the same time.
We didn't get this page in our report.
It's on the handout, the slide handout.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not included in the staff report because you're not establishing all these streets. You're establishing the last page of the staff report.
I got you. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, public comment. Anyone from the public? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept the recommendation by staff.
And I'll second it.
It's been moved and second. Moved and second. Any discussion? Let's vote. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, written communications.
Nothing, sir.
Oral communication. This is your opportunity to speak to us for up to 2 minutes on anything you choose. Seeing no one rise, we're going to close oral communication. Bring it back to the council for council requests, comments, and meeting reports. We'll start with Councilmember Vega, since he has his light on.
Oh, still. I have a council request, and I would like to add and make a council request that we have a discussion on adding a master calendar. This is part of Councilman Starbuck, one of his notes, actually, from the transparency, the last ad hoc that he had, and basically it came up, and I think it would be beneficial to all of us to actually come up with some sort of a master calendar of city events that would be outside of what the mayor gets. This is something for all of us, actually, that says, hey, these are the events that are coming up, and have them all distributed to council. I'm not sure if we have to actually go through a motion to actually have it changed in the council handbook, but I think it would be beneficial and have this master calendar actually be vetted through the city attorney on certain events to make sure that there is no Brown Act violations, so we don't have to wonder whether we're violating anything or not. There's many times that, hey, whether it's a commission or a committee meeting or whatever, we can attend everything or we can't. And if we say something, then we're out of line, or are we a resident? I think there's a lot of vagueness that sometimes I think the city attorney could help clarify so that we can know without any question that we can attend. And I think it would be to our benefit, basically for the public and for transparency. We're actually going to have another transparency meeting very soon. So I'd like the public to know that we take their comments and very seriously so that we can make corrections so that their city officials can actually attend a function without knowing that they're not violating any rule or recommendation. Usually we hate the public to be throwing rocks at us sometimes saying, hey, they see more than 2 of us there and they're wondering what the heck. So basically by rumor or by anything else, I think it's unfair that we can go to many, many functions with people who have a misunderstanding of what the Brown Act is.
Okay.
I'll give you a second on that because like you say, I've talked to many people about it, and there is also annual reporting that we have to do. And it would help not only us, staff knows, we get informed, but there's a lot of people that don't, i.e. contract compliancy is January, July. There's the CAPER report, just different reports that come out. And it's an annual thing, so it's available for all. If we could go ahead and tie it all in together, I'll absolutely give you a second on that, Councilmember Vega.
Yeah, I have no problem tying it all in, but on a monthly basis, I think that we should be able to be updated, even on a weekly if something comes up and gets rescheduled. That way we have some sort of proper notice instead of finding out in the paper that the mayor went somewhere or somebody else went somewhere. I think we can do a better job. I think just because we are city officials and we should be notified properly instead of having to look for it in the paper.
I'll third you.
Okay, you've got your third. Do you have enough, City Manager, do you have enough information?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and just for the record, I get no agendas or anything other than what the rest of the council gets. If I get something, you all get it. I get nothing special, so just so you know. Okay, anything else, Councilmember Vega?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Councilmember Osborne.
I have nothing to report, but there's a couple of things going on in our community. I want to make sure that our citizens are aware. Tomorrow there is a jobs fair being sponsored also by the city and the Chamber of Commerce, Workforce Development Board, et cetera, at the DeWeese Center from 2 to 5 p.m. So I encourage anyone interested in local job availability to attend. Thursday, sorry, you're right, thank you. 4:20 on Thursday. And then not only is the Spring Fest going on this weekend, but the Healthy Lompoc organization and the city and the fire department are putting on a community education and training on pedestrian and bike safety at Lompoc Valley Medical Center on Saturday, 4/22, from 10 to 2 p.m. I encourage anyone interested in learning more about the ability to walk and ride safely in our community to participate. And last but not least, the Leadership Lompoc Valley fundraiser for the class of 2017 is on Saturday, April 29th at the Boys and Girls Club at 6 p.m. The donation is $60 to attend. There's barbecue and fundraisers and raffles. And it is benefiting both the Boys Club and the North County Rape Crisis Center this year, so I encourage you all to attend that. So, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, if I can make a comment here, and I think there's a little confusion with the public about our priority list, and I believe the priority list that we did is we had a little extra money, something that we could spend on, and number 1 and 2 was housing and jobs, and public safety was on number 3rd. By all means, we all agree that public safety is a priority. We have gone out of our way to make sure that all positions we're funded through the budget cycle. In fact, the amount of money spent on fire has gone up, according to the CAFR report, 60% increase in fire expenditures in the last 7 years. So those people who seem that we didn't prioritize it, and we know that there are issues, most of them can be cured with more money. And one way to get it, as we have with streets and the general fund, is an increase in housing and jobs. And every year we are losing 0.5% to 1% of our people to the commute factor, which when they're gone, they're spending money somewhere else. And they're spending tens of millions of dollars a year on that commute. So right now, our housing starts, which is a federal economic indicator for how an economy is doing, and right now we're at 0. So we have a lot of work to go on that, and if we can get that number up to where it should be, we'll be able to cure, and we'll have it. We've been yelling for a number of years public safety is number one, but if we don't have any money, what are we going to do? So we need to get this town revitalized and back on board. So there's a level of confusion. Without a doubt, public safety, everybody's public safety, and our public safety departments are a significant priority. And we've done that. We've made sure that they are funded in the last budget cycle, and I'm sure we're going to do the same again this year. And it brings me to a meeting report that I went to SBCAG on April 5th, and where the Highway 246 are having about $4 million worth of cost overruns. A lot of it, a little bit because of the rain, but we had a significant increase because of nesting bird studies and delays because of nesting birds. And that little pesky tiger salamander, which is costing that highway improvement well over $2 million. And the fact that it was raining and it was moving around, they had increased monitoring of the tiger salamander. And they did investigate every gopher and squirrel hole to see if they were there. Had a little camera they stuck up there to see, make sure none of those little critters were affected. So those want to know where some of your money's going, there's another $2 million because of that. The delays are going to be, they're hoping to get it done, another 6 months, a little longer, but it might actually take it even further. I do have an SBCAG meeting on Thursday. Those who want to attend, it's 9 o'clock down in Santa Barbara. And with that, I do have one council request that I would like to bring forward for action and possible discussion and possible action, and that is the component of the code enforcement, the complaint-based code enforcement. And currently right now it is anonymous, and people can work at the anonymous level. And what I generally try to do is, if I have an issue with somebody, I try to talk to them face to face and find out if they need help. I feel free to help, go out there and help them fix this. And I believe I've had a lot of people talk to me about it, and I believe that relieving that anonymous complaint and taking that out of the equation. But I'd like to bring back that part of the policy that was put forward for discussion and possible action. And with that, I need a second and a third.
I'll give you a second.
Yeah, I'll do a third, but you know what I would like to, I've got a little portfolio I have on code enforcement. If we could do this possibly after the budget, you know, June 30th budget done, maybe in July timeframe,
Yeah, it doesn't have to come, obviously. Don't give Patrick a heart attack, he's all, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking about tomorrow, obviously not, no.
Yeah, I mean, as a future council agenda item, I mean, somewhere in July, because like you say, I've been putting together and had quite a bit of input from some people on this, and yeah, it's an issue that continually gets pushed along and moved along, and no, absolutely, I'll give you a third.
Okay. Anything else? Councilmember Mosby?
That's it.
Councilmember Starbuck?
I have no reports.
Okay. I attended a special NCPA meeting via conference call on the 5th of April. And also we did myself and I believe the city manager and people from the Economic Development Committee, we did a visit or a business visitation over at the Shack, presented them with a little plaque. On the 13th, I attended a literacy luncheon, and I handed out certificates to approximately 10 or 12 volunteers. Some of them have volunteered up to 22 hours in the literacy program. It was a great time with them. Those meetings were all at no cost to the city. I have a little request from someone. As many of you know, you may not know, the High Let's Eat sign is going to be taken down and relocated over at the Lompoc Historical Society, and they're asking for some help. So if anyone out here, anyone in the public has any knowledge of painting and repairing the sign, something, if you have any expertise in electricity, maybe helping with the lights on the sign, and also someone that can help, will take down and reinstall the sign at and they're saying a minimum fee. So it's not just all volunteer work. They're willing to pay out something, but it's going to be an expensive endeavor, so they're looking for some help. So if you have this expertise, you can contact the Historical Society, P.O. Box 88 here in Lompoc, California, or phone number 735-4626, if you or you know someone that might be able to help them with that sign. And then I just have one final request. I don't know if it's, you tell me if it's a council request. I know Councilmember Mosby tried to attend the marijuana ad hoc committee meeting and was told he could not attend. I tried to attend the last one, was told that I could not attend. I'm not sure why. We're going to get some clarification on that, but it sort of leaves the rest of the council in the dark. So I'd like to request that possibly Councilmember Mosby, Councilmember Osborne and Vega at maybe the next meeting or something like that, just give us a little update as to where you are with it, sort of a schedule, what you've covered, what you think you are what's going forward, and maybe a projected date. So, Councilmember Vega.
I have one more question and one more comment. Councilman Mosby, do we not have a transparency meeting also scheduled here very shortly, I believe, on the calendar?
When's it coming up? Stacy will help us out with that.
I have my calendar.
25th?
The 25th, okay, so I wanted to do this as a reminder.
Time? 6:30, the 25th.
So 6:30, the 25th, we'll have our, I don't know if we call it a quarterly transparency meeting for the public, okay? If you have any comments, I'd encourage you guys to show up. It'll be between myself and Councilman Mosby. We'll be running the ad hoc committee, so it's just a reminder.
Thank you. So, Mr. Assistant City Manager, do I need a...
Yeah, it is a request
so-
for an agenda
okay,
item, so you need 3 votes.
Oh, so, yeah, City Attorney, okay, so, well, at least I didn't call him. Who did call? So, okay, so I need a second and a third on this request to have them come back with a little report to us at a future meeting. Ad hoc? Yeah, the marijuana ad hoc, yeah. Councilmember Mosby?
I'll second, but I also had a comment for you on something.
Okay.
So.
And I'll give you the third.
Okay, second and third. Yes, comment.
You know, there was a little confusion. I think this would help out without going to a level of discussion with a master calendar of what we can or can't attend. But I was actually told by the city manager that I could attend, and then the city attorney saw me at the meeting and said, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, well, okay, can I be here? Can I not? Can I attend as a member of the public? Can I not? So I think that's where the master calendar discussion here would be really nice to know, because it's not really cool to be called out in public and said, "You're not supposed to be here." So that's where I came from on that one. I did ask permission to go to that meeting.
Well, sure, and it's never been an issue with us attending committee meetings or ad hoc committee meetings, but obviously it was an issue there, and I've asked for some clarification. We're going to get some clarification for us on that, because we're sort of being left in the dark right now, and as a member of the public, I'd like to attend these meetings. Councilmember Starbuck.
And real quick, I'd like to interject, the enterprise reimbursement ad hoc, Councilmember Mosby and myself are on. We are not dead. We are getting very close to presenting some items to staff on that also.
Okay, good. Anything else? I just threw away the wrong piece of paper. Yeah. Okay, if there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned to the regular Lompoc City Council meeting at 6:30 p.m. on May 2nd. Thank you and good night.